Okay, hey guys, thanks for joining us again for another webinar. In this one, we'll be mainly focusing on the VideoCoin Network staking options. We'll be showing you a demo on how to do the delegation, and also taking you through our new piece of software that we'll be shipping for pool operators. Like Santiago here, to help you guys do some of the reward payouts that needs to happen as a result of you accepting delegators into your worker pool. So we'll do that, and then I'll hand over to Ram for who'll do a staking app demo, and then he'll do a WithPool software demo. Just so you guys know, WithPool presently doesn't have a release date yet, but it is most certainly going to release before July 25th. And July 25th is the date on which the Genesis staking pool will do its first payout. So to coincide with that, that'll be the worst case. We obviously want to get that software out earlier so that other pool operators can get access to it and get familiar with it before it is time for you to do your reward distributions. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with VideoCoin and the types of stakings that we offer, one that is direct stake. So direct stake is the VideoCoin that a worker needs to stake for operating a worker node under the algorithm of proof of stake. So that is the first type of stake. The second type of stake is delegated stake, which is where VID is delegated into other workers. Like for example, you can take your ERC20 VID tokens and directly delegate it into a pool of workers that are available using our staking app. And we have a special case of the delegated stake and the direct stake version, which is our Genesis pool, which is a limited time pool that is operated by the VideoCoin Network to support network operations. And you can learn more about the Genesis pool and the rationale behind the pool on our Medium posts. There's a lot of information there, but basically those are the three main types of staking available. That would, and just to dig a little deep into what these staking means to each one of you is, let's say you did direct stake and staked and got a worker up and running. So you would get 80% of the job costs in fiat. So there is a worker selection process that happens, which is again documented on our Medium in great depth. But basically, a worker is selected based on the amount of VideoCoin staked and the performance, as well as the metric available, which is as well as the uptime metric. So it checks. Obviously, if we assign work to a worker that is offline, it's not going to do anything. So it checks those three things, does a weighted average, and figures out a worker, selects a worker randomly, whose probability of getting selected is directly proportional to the stake. So this is for direct staking is for those who want to run workers and those who are technically capable of running them. So we've tried hard to make the worker setup as simple as possible. But obviously, based on the feedback that we've received from the community, we still want to take it further and make it even simpler. And we covered some of that in our previous webinar. So I'm not going to go down that path again and explain everything again. If you guys want to check it out, it's on our YouTube channel, where we in depth discuss how to set up a worker and what is on our roadmap for a worker setup process. But basically, direct stake is for you if you know how to set up a worker and have excess compute capacity that you want to use and get on get on the VideoCoin network for doing so. And the other type of staking is delegated staking, right? Like, so presently, I say 20% of job costs in fiat. It's required by our terms and conditions to provide at least 20% of the job costs that you earned in fiat out into the worker. So when you delegate stake into a worker that is not the Genesis pool, you're basically agreeing to the worker who's the pool operator who's running the pool to their terms and conditions. So we'll just cover that in the next slide. But at a high level, right? Like there's a whole bunch of flexibility here. I'll cover that soon. But at a high level, if you want fiat payouts, which is public mint payouts, then you have to stake into a worker pool that is not the Genesis pool. So like, let's say, for example, Santiago's pool or the Blue pool, one of those are the two other options available right now. That again, that doesn't mean that you'll get payout in fiat, but we'll cover that in the next slide. But and that leaves us with the Genesis pool. So if you stake into the Genesis pool, the rewards are paid out in VID only, and then that is based on the again, uptime metric, performance metric, and a bunch of other things that the Genesis pool calculates to make sure that so when you're delegating into the Genesis pool, you're basically helping the Genesis pool stay online. So like the logic there is, even if we don't have any workers on the network, we'll at least have the Genesis pool until we get critical mass of workers on the platform. So Genesis pool rewards only in VID, and it rewards on 25th of every month until the program is running. So presently, it is slated to run for 12 months. Again, like for you to get the accurate information, you refer to our Medium post. But presently, yeah, it's only going to run for a limited time. That's the present plan. And it would automatically pay out on the 25th of every month. And this is the best. This is the best and quickest summary that I can provide of the three options that you have available. So that brings us to the pool operator, right? Like some of the stuff that we'll discuss today will look fairly complex, and that is required only if you're a pool operator, and not all of you will be pool operators. But it is great if you want to be a pool operator, and we're here either way, right? Like whether you want to be a pool operator or just a single worker or just a delegator. In all of those three roles, you're helping us and help the network operate. So we're here to support you guys in the same way, no matter what you do. But just so you know, a role of a pool operator is slightly more involved, right? Like, because one is you need to set a fiat payout %. The minimum is required minimum is 20% required by the terms of operation that you agreed to when you signed up a worker node. So you can, like, for example, if you can set out terms and conditions to your work delegators, where you can control the way you want to do these payouts, whether you want to do this in fiat or in public mint fiat, or like in some other form. But those agreements are between you and your delegators. We say that you at least have to do 20% minimum, and then from there you can determine the terms and conditions that you want to set for your delegators. And you have to set a payout period. So in case of Genesis pool, the payout period is every month. It happens on the 25th of every month, just because we launched the Genesis pool on 25th June. So it's gonna do the first one 25th July, and so on and so forth. But you'll have to set a period and terms and conditions, and also provide contact information to delegators. So presently, delegators can contact our pool operators via our Telegram channels. Um, but we will be providing a way to configure these in our console. So like when you log into console, there's a user page where you can actually set your user information. We originally thought we should just make that user email that you signed up with public, but then obviously some of you may not want to use that email address, or you want to create a different one or you want to provide other communication channels like Telegram. Maybe you'll set up your own private Telegram group that you want us to link to, and so on and so forth. So we will add that functionality into our console, which is the, like I've mentioned on Telegram, one of the top features that we're working on. It should ship sooner than later, where you'll be able to set contact information. So you can imagine setting a Telegram group, email address, and so on and so forth, where your delegators will reach out to you and say and work with you for any types of support issues and whatever it is. So that is the role of a pool operator. So that brings us to WithPool. So WithPool is a piece of software that we'll demo now. Again, you'll only care about WithPool if you're a pool operator or a worker node operator. If you're not a worker node operator, do not worry about it. But for those who run worker pools, this is a piece of software that is extremely useful for you guys, because we figured out that almost all of you will have to run some sort of a version of WithPool's functionality. So we realized that there's no point of us there's no point of every one of you implementing the same thing again and again. So you can use WithPool, but that is open source software. Sorry, I don't know if it's going to be open source this month. We will eventually open source it, but it is free software for now, and you should definitely read documentation and see if it suits your need, and you can use that to do your payouts. So it presently directly interfaces with public mint, and also if you want to pay out with bit tokens, that is also supported using a command line parameter. So it just does payouts on both chains, and it interfaces directly into public mint. So you don't have to rewrite all of this software. So the way WithPool works is, let's say you're a pool operator. When you run the WithPool software, it will check for all delegations on your worker node from the block number that you provide, that you ask it to pull from. From there onwards, it calculates how long a particular delegator has delegated on your worker node, and then you can set a percentage of payout, and you can say whether it is fiat payout or with payout. So with payout is in a separate option path that you'll see. But yeah, you can set those options, and WithPool software will do the payout for you. This is WithPool software by itself. This is the present implementation of WithPool right now. This is just for visualization purposes. These numbers may be wrong. Like I did this diagram a while back, so these numbers may be wrong. But this is just for illustration purposes on how this thing would work, right? Like, so let's say a VideoCoin Network, a publisher paid $1,000 to VideoCoin Network. $800 would be paid to the worker, assuming that the worker did $800 worth of work, right? And let's say the worker has self stake of 300K VID, and has 3 million staked in delegated stake, right? So when the WithPool software runs, the worker's self stake is calculated as a part of the stake, because that's the only way you can be fair, right? Like, let's say in our present use case, the delegation minimum is 50,000 VID, So let's say you stake 50,000 VID, and you had two delegators who staked one VID each. So for you to pay out 20% to two delegators who just take one VID each would be an unfair math on at least from in our eyes. But then again, this is WithPool implementation, and you're free to implement your own delegated payout in the way you see fit. But this is just the way we've implemented it, which we think is the fair way to do the payouts. If you do not agree with these payouts, you can implement your own algorithms, and which is pretty common in the industry, right? Like if you see different pool operators there for Ethereum and Bitcoin, each one of those pool operators have their own rules, and their delegators and stakers are totally fine with it, and they agree to their terms and conditions and participate in the pool. So in case of WithPool, this is how it works. So like your self stake is counted as a part of the stake, and you'll get whatever part of that stake as your commission, and the delegators will get their commissions as per the weights. So again, like I said, these numbers may be totally wrong, but it look right. So of the $800, you got the 80% rewards. No, these numbers are wrong, but you get these numbers are definitely wrong. But you get the essence here. So like when there is payout that comes in, there is self payout, and then the delegators are also paid out. This is only an example for how WithPool works. Okay, so I think this is where I hand over the uh, demo to Ram, but I think I'm just going to look at chat because there was a bunch of questions here. I'll answer those questions and then we can hand it over to Ram for a demo. Okay, so question number one. Will a new roadmap be coming out for the next milestones? So presently our roadmap is reactionary, right? Like, so what we've done is right now we've shipped our software, and then we're listening to you guys, and then we're kind of seeing what the community needs and building that to make your life easier, either as a worker or as a delegator. So as you guys saw, the Genesis the staking app came out completely based on the feedback we received from the community. We had no plans of shipping that app, but based on the feedback we got, and then because if you remember the first when we shipped Everest, the way to do delegations was through command line. And because most of you guys said that it was difficult to use command line and so on and so forth, we prioritized the staking app. So now it is really easy for people to do staking. So it's kind of hard for us at this point of time to commit to a roadmap because we're figuring out what is it that the users need for the commercially available system that we have. So as we progress in a relationship and working relationship with you guys, I think we'll figure out what we should be doing next. Next question. Delegators have asked me to provide rewards in VID as worker as part of 20%. So like this is not possible yet through public mint. I believe they have plans to implement it. I have no idea when they will ship it. So I think my recommendation for delegators who want to pay out on VID is to arrange for VID through other mechanisms like KuCoin or BitDirex that has VID on available right now. Okay, is there any other questions? Is it possible to log machine names to prevent other people from using similar names? Okay, definitely that's a great point. So what we can do is, this is definitely a great point. We can figure out a way to for you guys to sign your machine name and publish your. So if any of you have used Keybase, once you sign your name, you can actually publicly verify that it is you. We could use some of those methodologies to show that your machine is actually yours. But we'll put that on our feature queue. Okay, the large compute workers being onboarded to the network. So, like we're working, the BD, when we say we, the business development team is working pretty hard to get workers onto the network. So, like I said, the more workers we get, the better it is for the network. And also it's better for the worker pools because as we get more workers on the network, the publishers who are submitting video jobs, right, like their confidence in the network will improve and increase. That in turn will lead to more jobs and then more work actually being landing on your worker nodes as well. So that is work in progress. I think the BD team will announce when they have more to announce, I guess. Okay, great. If there's no other questions, I will let Ram take over and do a demo of the Delegator app first, and then the WithPool software. So, Ram, do you want to take over?
Thanks, Deva. Hi, everybody. This is Ram. I'm going to spend, just give me a second to say hi to everybody. Why it is not. Okay. So, quick hi to everybody. I'll take another 5-10 minutes to go through delegated staking app, followed by WithPool demo. So let me take the presentation to my entire screen. Just give me a second. Okay, I think the meeting itself is getting reflected. I set full screen. So these are staking app which many of you are, many of the delegators already used, where if you look at in our Explorer, there was a lot of activity. Many people already used this app, and Genesis pool got delegation up to 18.75 million onwards, and another active node is BDC also got delegated. But I'll go through the steps real quick. So these are our delegation app, which integrates with MetaMask. So there you will be selecting the network and setting up your accounts. So once everything is set up, the app shows the currently eligible workers that can be staked. Let's say if I want to stake a couple of tokens from my balance to Genesis, VideoCoin Genesis, either I'll be selecting a percentage based or I'll be feeding certain number of tokens. Say, let's say I want to delegate 2 tokens here. So I'll say stake tokens. I have to agree for terms and conditions. Then I'll say next. So there is a pop-up prompting for confirmation from MetaMask. Since it is with Ethereum mainnet, it's going to take some time. Here for the safety, we have some 8-block confirmation period. So after that, the first step of going to escrow, then getting locked will be performed, where the tokens will be tied with the Genesis pool. So do you want me to wait until this, Deva? I think many people are familiar. Do you want me to jump to WithPool directly?
Yeah, no, I think I just want to answer one question that came up on our tech channels today, right? Like I think probably Santiago asked it here as well. Um, the tokens that get delegated, they are bridged in. So the contract escrows it and holds it, but they are bridged into our main network, and then the native tokens are the ones that are staked. So when you set up a direct stake worker, even then the your ERC20 tokens are bridged in, um, and uh, uh, and we removed that requirement for the staking app only because people found it really hard to understand the bridging mechanisms and stuff like that using the delegated command line tool. So it's abstracted out, but it happens in the background. And then here's another question here. At present, worker pool nodes are classified by machines using WithPool. Um, okay, so the pool is something that, okay, this the second one.
Yeah, the second step. So I'll click confirmation again.
Yeah, so I think like before I answer this question, it's really important for us to just explain a bit about how this thing works. So there's the two steps that happens here. One is you're using your the Ethereum account that has ERC20 with tokens in it, and then work and asking and allowing, basically increasing allowance to the contract that which is going to do the bridge and staking. So you're allowing that, you're providing it an allowance to do it. So that is the first transaction that happens, and then the second transaction that happens is actually the bridge contract executing on that one, and then and doing the stake operation. Once that stake operation happens, the bridge also executes, automatically converts that, bridges that ERC20 into native tokens, and then finishes the delegation on our native blockchain. So all of this is all completely abstracted out for you guys. Actually, behind the scenes on this app, there's a lot of work that goes on, a lot of magic that happens to make sure that both the VideoCoin native blockchain and Ethereum blockchain are in sync. So that's why it requires those two operations, and that's why like in order to make sure that these things work, we put a bunch of confirmations everywhere. Wait for 8 blocks. Wait for 8 blocks for each transaction. But when all of this is done, the your worker actually will end up having the delegated tokens in your in the VideoCoin native blockchain, and you can explore that in the VideoCoin Explorer. If you go and check your worker account, you'll see that there's actual stake that's showing up there through delegation. That's because of the way the bridge works. Yeah, and then this one, like some folks had issues with this. Like there's you definitely have to wait for two transactions. Now you see this, right? Like the increase allowance transaction runs, and then the stake transaction runs. So if you're wait for both of them for staking to be successful, otherwise it's not going to be successful. And if any of you are stuck after the first step, like you did the first step, close the browser or something, you don't have to worry. Come back and do this exact same amount to stake. Try to stake that again, and then it will just execute because the increase allowance has already run, and then that is recorded on the blockchain. So the increase allowance has already run, and then now the stake will use that same transaction and finish the stake.
Yes. So once it is successfully transferred, the balance goes down, and your delegated stake count will go up. As Deva was mentioning, you can look those transactions in our Explorer also, where there is an increase. You can paste your address and look at the transactions. Even MetaMask shows through Etherscan also, say from your account. So if you look at you can go to the mainnet and you can as well look at the transactions there with that account.
Yeah, one quick other point I want to add here is so when we originally launched this thing on 25th, we had a bit of people were asking us to reduce the gas prices that we had set. So we've fixed that now, and then the gas prices are now set to a moderate price instead of a high price. So as you saw, the transactions go through fine in about 20 seconds or so. But we wait for the blocks to mine, right? Like on an average, an Ethereum block mines in about 30 seconds. So it waits for about 4 minutes or so for all the blocks to be confirmed. So that's where the waiting comes in. And unless you fiddle with the gas price there and then turn it down to really low, the transactions should not get stuck. They should just run fine. Okay, so that was our quick staking app demo. Like I said, we've removed a lot of the complexities and built an app that is extremely simple in the front end, but in the back end there's like a lot of heavy lifting that goes on and bridging process that basically if I don't know if anybody tried the Delegator command line app, but it takes the command line app and then does all of this activity and more using a front end. So that's our demo for the staking app. And if you don't have any further questions, we'll go and do the WithPool. So let's say Santiago is saying, does the WID blockchain consume WID in the same manner as Ethereum? Yeah, so it does. So the way we call it wattage. So wattage is consumed on a blockchain, just like it's consumed on Ethereum. So you need, let's say you want to stake 50,000 tokens on VID as a worker. You need 50,001 VideoCoin tokens to be bridged into our native for it to work. I mean, one is just an arbitrary number right throughout there, but like basically, if you just only bridge 50,000 tokens and try to stake 50,000 tokens, it's not going to work. Okay, thanks, Ram. So the next demo is WithPool. So WithPool, before Ram jumps into the demo, it will be available as a Docker image and in our Docker hub. And you can run it in a similar way as you run the VideoCoin worker. The reason again it's a Docker image is because it's easy for you to run on any different platform. You want to compile it and whatnot. And like I said, we have plans to open source this piece of software. As of now, it's not ready to be open source, but we'll be working on it. Take it over, Ram.
Thanks, Deva. So let's jump into WithPool demo. Let me clear this screen. So basically, there is a configuration file which configures your payment structure, as Deva was explaining earlier. So let's go over those items real quick. So the configuration file basically includes you have to allocate a folder where the WithPool keeps its state. When it paid and what is the pending blocks, if there is a kind of failure due to crashes, how to recover. So basically you have to allocate a data directory and supply it to the Docker image. So similarly, we'll be indicating a normal Ethereum key file where the payments go back and forth. In the sense, if you are sharing the 20% as WID stake, it goes from this particular account. So password is hidden here, and some of these entries are to support both the fiat payments and WID payments. But right now, you can ignore this for the flat payment, which is on the WID currency or WID tokens. If you are using fiat payments, then the public mints URLs will be used. But you don't need to touch these things. Here they are for configurability. The Docker image will have defaults set for these things. So then what you need to set it is based on your contractual agreement with your delegators. You'll be setting, what rate uh, they'll be getting, and a unit, whether if you want to do it in more fine grain in terms of months, you can set it here. But basically, these to allow flexibility in payment system. And the safety is how many blocks you want to wait until your transactions are confirmed. So this what the configuration file basically drives the WithPool tool. Um, Let me run a WithPool tool and explain those parameters here. So basically, it is a Docker image. As Dava said, I'm pulling it from Docker Hub, which it straight away. We are doing a kind of little bit feature edition, so the versions are in a little bit development phase. But once it gets consolidated, you can start using it. This will be pointing to the configuration file that I was talking about. So this is your local folder of the host, which you'll be assigning to the Docker image, which you'll be knowing already based on your experience with the stacker and worker. So these are your local host folder, which will be mapping to the Docker's internal folder. From that point onwards, you'll be indicating all your configuration files with respect to that folder. So let me run this command. So this particular account has already a bunch of delegations. So the way it runs is it scans the network for all the delegations. If any new delegations are showed up, and it will identify the delegation start times. Then it calculates the payments based on how long those delegations stayed, and it pays them to those accounts. So these are all the delegated accounts, and these are all the amounts that are calculated based on that delegated amount and how long they're on the blockchain. They're allocated to the particular pool. So that concludes with pool demo. Unless you have a few more questions.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to add here. So all of this, when you run the WithPool software, right, like the report that it generates, Ram, if you don't mind, can you scroll down? Yeah. So this report that it generates is the one that you need to share with your delegators, right? Like, so that way, you know exactly what the delegator got paid and the amount, right? So what we'll also do is we're working on an additional feature here that is not logged, that shows the exact duration as well. So like, like for delegator, the first delegator, what was the duration in number of blocks that they had and on the Ethereum mainnet. So that gives you the duration of their delegated stake into the network. So once that is calculated, you'll get the amount paid out. So in this case, we're just presently, because obviously we cannot run WithPool on production network during a demo. This is pointing out to a testnet, right? Like it's pointing out to Girdley here, but it will point to, and then you can also run tests using any testnet that you want. But basically, when we run this on, we'll run the same exact software for the Genesis pool payouts. And when we do that on July 25th, we'll take the report that is generated and then publish it on our forums. So you know exactly what period of delegator got rewarded for what. And we recommend pool operators to do the same. So we recommend you guys to, you can either create a forum page on our VideoCoin forum. You can create a page for yourself where you can continuously output results, or if you want to set up your own website or your own Medium blog or WordPress blog. so on and so forth. So those are all possible, and that is what we're implementing in our user console. Like I said, you'll be able to set some of these parameters out there, and then those will be visible in the staking app. So you can just basically communicate with your delegators better. Yeah, so I think that's the demo for WithPool and staking app. As you guys see, this all of this looks fairly simple, but we do all of the heavy lifting and in the back end so that your life, either as a delegator or as a worker pool operator, is simple enough. And we really appreciate all the feedback that we've been getting. Like I said, that's really helping us shape our product. Anything further, please don't hesitate to send it to our way. On our forums is the best way to do it, because we'll have a record and we can track it and assign bugs and whatnot. But yeah, as you guys can see, we're eager to hear from you guys and implement product improvements as we go forward in this together. So thanks again for everybody for joining us. I'll just quickly scan through if there's any further questions, and then we can end today's session. Let's see. Is the safety parameter VID blocks or Ethereum blocks? So it's Ethereum blocks, because VID is instant finality blockchain. It gets mined instantaneously. And also, like, you're not doing payouts on the VID blockchain ever, right? So the payouts happen either on public mint blockchain or on the Ethereum blockchain. If EtherCAN is employed, can you point delegators to an address to see transaction history? Yeah, that probably, I think, is because it's such a complex thing. I think what you should do is, like I said, create a website or a forum post where you can just dump all of the links, so a delegator can click through and see it. It'll just give you way more flexibility than us implementing a feature for you to put in 100 transactions out there. Okay, the worker rate dollar per hours. Yeah, so we saw your comments, Santiago. So we're like I said, presently we're in our worker pricing, our publisher pricing are all kind of tests right now for us. We're testing the market and see what will resonate with workers as well as with publishers. I'd expect that to stabilize out in the next couple of months, as we get more BD on the demand side and more BD on the supply side. We'll get to a point. So here's what happens, right? Like, if we set a price that is super cheap, then it's not going to be good for workers. And then if we set a price that is super expensive, then publishers are not going to take it, because they'll rather go to AWS, right? So we have to strike that balance, and we're doing that research, talking to folks and seeing what works for us, what works for them, and also what works for you guys, right? Like, there is a imminent price change coming. But before it comes, I think we plan to send out a survey, like the way we send out for our worker setup issues and stuff. We'll send out a survey to all our registered workers. We'll hear your feedback, right? We'll say, like, look, this is what we're thinking about our pricing models. What is your feedback, and where do you think the break even exists for you guys? Because when you run worker nodes, we want to make sure that you break even as well. Because if I set the per minute transcode price is 0.00001 cent, everybody on the publisher side will be super happy, but the workers will all drop off from these explorers, right? So we'll strike the balance. I think I just say that it's coming, but we just need to do a proper research around this. All right, great. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you joining us. And then Jason will remind you that this stream will be available on our YouTube channel.